If I could have everybody's attention here in the media center, it's my pleasure to introduce to you somebody who really needs no introduction. Jeff Gordon, driver of the number 88 Nationwide Chevrolet for Hendrick Motorsports. Race car driver, worldwide traveler. I mean, you were in France, then Indianapolis, and then Mexico, and then Pocono. I mean, where are you going after?
Well, Mexico was on business for Exalta, so I've been busy. A lot of these things that were already scheduled, and then to throw in these two races has definitely made it a very, very hectic schedule. I've not even been home to get a new set of clothes, so I was doing some laundry this week myself as well. But as far as Pocono, it was nice to get that race under my belt at Indy. I feel a little more confident in understanding the car and the limits and the competition, and working with Greg and the 88 team. I felt like they did a really, really nice job in Indianapolis. I didn't do them any favors on the restarts, but luckily got a few back on that last corner to get a decent finish. And then, this week, a little bit different preparation than last week. Get fitted in the car, debrief with the team from Indianapolis, and then preparation to Pocono. Didn't have test video from some of our teammates for here like we did last week at Indianapolis, and I didn't have time to get in the driving simulator either. So first few laps today were definitely again, a steep learning curve. This is a very challenging racetrack, so it's going to be a tough, challenging weekend. But I do like this track, and a little bit to learn with this new package.
Good deal. We're going to open the floor up to questions. Got a lot of folks that have them. We'll start here with Claire B. Lang, and then go to Jerry Jordan, and we'll work our way around.
Claire B. Lang, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. Did you get a chance to debrief at all with Dale Jr.? And as you work with the team, what is it that you want to work on, even beyond last week, this week in particular?
I've spoke to Dale a couple times. He and this team have a great relationship, and he and Greg, and so he's, he likes to FaceTime. So it seems like he's always on the treadmill every time I see him or talk to him. But he's just real interested in what we're up to and how it's going and things we're working on. I think, also a lot of it is through this process is evaluating, where they're at as a team and some of the setups, and whether I'm going to be making the same comments, as he was making when he was in the car. And so far, I feel like it's been very, very similar. Definitely any amount of information that I can get to help me prepare for every time I'm on the track is great information, and I'm asking everybody questions, just trying to get up to speed on everywhere we go, including Dale.
Go next to Jerry.
Jerry Jordan, Performance Racing Network, Kicking the Tires. Jeff, last week, Dale talked on his podcast about this process was taking longer than he anticipated. Are you prepared to run longer, or is there a contingency plan if he comes out Monday and says, hey, I'm probably not going to be at Watkins Glen, and how do you feel about that?
Well, we have to cross that bridge when we get there. I mean, it seems like, it was great last Friday to see him, say, hey, I feel good today and made some progress. And, we want to just keep going with, how he's feeling. The doctors are evaluating and not speculate anything at this time. But, I wouldn't be here in Pocono if I wasn't committed to be there for Hendrick and this team in any way that they need me. I think that there's a balance between trying to make this transition. And first of all, you want Dale to have the comfort of knowing that somebody's there for him. He doesn't have to worry about that aspect of it through this process, and just get well at the pace that's the right pace to do it. So nobody's putting any pressure or time frame on that. He may be putting it on himself more than anybody else. Then there's the side of who's the best person to be in the car to get the most points, and then there's the the sponsorship, side of it as well. So far, that from what Rick is telling me, that seems to be me. So that's why I was at Indy, and that's why I'm here. I thought Alex Bowman did an excellent job at New Hampshire, and I tell you, after going through what I went through at Indy, I have a much greater appreciation for him, because that was one of the toughest things I ever did. And not just getting in the race car after 8 months, but trying to fill in for Dale Earnhardt Jr., knowing the kind of attention that it gets. My heart was beating out of my chest because of the pressure and the eyes that were on you, as much as just not being in the car. So, great job to Alex. But, I'll be here as long as they need me. I say that very loosely.
Jeff, Rick Bonnell with the Charlotte Observer. Two quick things. One, you mentioned restarts several times. Brad brought up this morning that he thinks now with the double file starts that restarts have become more of a specialty and a higher emphasis. I wondered if you agree with that and you had any thoughts about that. And also, since you mentioned how tired you were at the end of the race the other day, I just wondered.
I wasn't tired. I was hot.
Okay. Well, then
there's a difference.
Okay. Did it take you? I guess what I was asking is, did it take you longer to get back from the fatigue of that race than it might have a year ago?
I mean, I've been quite surprised, honestly, with how it's gone. I mean, I got some texts from a lot of drivers this week talking about, oh man, how you feeling? Came back to the hottest race of the year. How'd that go? And the hydration system that I have had for years, that was in the car, the cooling system upgrades that they had at the 88 team, that was blowing the air in my helmet. Did its job, because I was able to stay hydrated and stay ahead of the dehydration. I didn't get any cramping. I did get hot. I didn't feel like the air was cooling me as much as I wanted to the second half of the race. But because I stayed up on the hydration, and I drank every drop that was in there. The red flag didn't help. It was really, really hot when that red flag came out. But all things considered, I thought it went pretty well, from what I heard from some of the other drivers. Definitely my body, the muscles that I haven't used in a while were on fire, Monday and Tuesday. So that part, that part's a little bit different. I mean, even the activities that I have been doing over the last several months that are more outdoor activities, not a lot of in the gym type stuff, doesn't light my back up like being in the race car. But I felt good today. Well, the restarts, I wish there was a way to practice restarts. We go and test race cars, but we don't test restarts. Ever since the double file restarts have come into play, it's changed the sport and the game in a big way. And some are better at it than others. I don't know. And let's clarify, a restart is not getting to fourth gear. A restart is going through turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, turn 4, the first few corners in the lap, and being on the outside or inside. It's not about going up through the gears. That part is pretty easy. I feel like I do that as good or better than anybody. But it's what happens when you get to the turn and how you are aggressively picking lines and making moves and making up positions. And also, I don't think you can evaluate, the leader either. I mean, the leader has control of it. They made a bigger restart box, only helps the leader, which is a good thing. I think the leader should be in control of that. Before, it was almost too small, and it was giving the others around him an advantage. But Kyle, I think no matter where he starts, is one of the best out there. Some great. Now that I'm in the TV side of things, there's great loop data, that shows who the best restarters are, and Kyle always is at the top. So, you take the fastest car, the best team, one of the best drivers, and the best restarter, and that's going to be a dangerous combination to beat. It's something I wish I was better at. Some of it, I felt like was some handling characteristics and air pressure in the tires, but a lot of it was just me needing to do a little bit better job paying attention to where the runs were coming from behind me, or trying to get the runs ahead of me.
Okay, we're going to go to Bob, and then to Brian, and then to Dustin, and then to Dom.
Bob Parker, ESPN. You kind of touched on this, but how is your back feeling, and just health-wise and back-wise? I mean, do you feel like you can if needed, continue racing? In other words, is your health and physical condition going to be any sort of factor in whether you continue?
I mean, you know, I fought through it the last few years. I could fight through it longer if I had to. You know, I prefer not to. I mean, I'm looking at this as a very temporary thing. You know, I'm really more excited right now about my engagement at Hendrick Motorsports and helping, you know, Rick and Doug Ducard and Ken Howes and Marshall Carlson and you know, everybody there at trying to find out where we can be better, how we can be more competitive in that role in those meetings, more so than driving the race car. But being in the race car does help me do a better job with that as well.
Good, Brian.
Jeff, Brian Nelson with MRN. I believe last week you mentioned the goal here is to help Dale out when he returns, and then you mentioned a few minutes ago about the team trying to interpret your feedback versus how they perceive Dale might give feedback. So how will you measure your success over these few weeks in the car? You know, I mean, if you go out and win on Sunday, is that the end of it, or do you have to look past that some few weeks to see if Dale, you know, is better when he returns?
Well, you know, this is like, I think what this is like for the team is getting a second opinion. And I think every driver out there sometimes would like to have a second opinion of you know, their setup or their car. So, you know, to me, if I'm saying the same things that Dale's saying, if you're seeing the same results in qualifying, let's say, then you know, there's obviously some things that need to be worked on besides behind the driver, behind the wheel. I mean, you know, it's going to be a very difficult thing for me to evaluate because not being in the car enough. I mean, like today we had limited practice because of the weepers, and that, you know, I needed every lap that I could get as much time as possible to give a fair assessment of where we're at. But I'm keeping my fingers crossed for weather tomorrow, and I didn't make a great lap in qualifying run. The one run that we had today, I clipped the apron down to 1, so I think we have more speed in the car than that. And then I think the other thing is just you know, trying to keep the excitement and spark in there in the team, and make sure that in a time like this that they don't get down, that you keep them up, keep them energized, keep them motivated for when Dale comes back. So, you know, that you know, if any kind of momentum that you can gain by a good lap, a good qualifying run, a good race. You know, they had great pit stops last week. So, I mean, I felt like, you know, from a team standpoint, and I told Dale this, you know, he should be really, really proud. They've got a great team. And, you know, what I want to make sure I do is give them, you know, the results that they deserve. And I don't know if I'm quite there yet, but, you know, just like last week, over the runs during the race, I felt like I started getting comfortable and being in a position to give them what the car was capable of. But we need to start further forward, better track position.
Okay, we're going to go to
and less restarts.
We'll go next to Dustin, then to Dom, and then over here to the center. I can't see you over there.
Yeah, last week was just a teaser for restarts. There'll be 5, 6 wide going into turn 1 here. Can't wait.
Dustin Long, NBC Sports. Jeff, Brad was in here earlier today talking about his accident at Watkins Glen. I don't know how familiar you are with what happened to him.
I saw the video.
Okay. Part of his comments today was that, you know, he had concern about the runoff area in turn 1 because there's so much of it there at the angle. And his comment was, in general, I'm not comfortable with tracks that have runoffs that lead to very harsh angles, and that's certainly the situation that track has and always has had it. Road courses remain the most dangerous tracks in motorsports for a good reason because of that. We know that going in. He mentions that, you know, people talk about Daytona and Talladega being a place as kind of worrisome. He says, they don't worry me as much as road courses do. Do you kind of share some of the same feelings Brad does in regards to road courses and Watkins Glen in that turn 1 in particular?
Well, yes and no. I mean, I think there's no doubt that on a road course, it's hard to create the you know, best ways to absorb impacts of you know, of these angles and things, especially when you have a track that has a set of corners that we don't use. And so we're shortening up the circuit, and we have some of that at Sonoma, we have some of that at Watkins Glen. But the first thing is to not have a brake failure. You know, to me that's a bigger concern, is to make sure there's no brake failures. And I have some concerns with this, with the aero package, being less downforce, less drag, and a new surface like Watkins Glen. You're going to be driving in the corners much deeper and using a lot more brakes, and we've already seen brake temps being an issue at some of the tracks this year. So, I'd be concerned with that. But all I can tell you is Watkins Glen is 100% or 200% safer now than it was when I first started racing there. I was there when Tommy Kendall had his wreck in the GTP car, and I can tell you that they've made huge strides in how impacts are absorbed and those angles and those runoffs. So, I think all things considered, what he went through, I think to see him walk away and for it not to be worse, I thought that was actually something that needed to be applauded as well. But can we do better? Absolutely, always. And every track needs to be evaluated each time we go there and find areas that it can be improved. But I don't know if we're in a position where we shouldn't be going to these racetracks.
Go next to your left to Dom.
Dominic Artigo on the RacingExperts.com. So for your fans, for Junior's fans, and for fans of Hendrick Motorsports, what's the likelihood we would see merchandise reflecting the last couple of weeks be made, like a die-cast or a T-shirt?
Zero chance. Not produced by us. We consciously made an effort that there wasn't going to be Gordon on the car anywhere. That it's not about that. I just have too much respect for what Dale is going through and what and this is, you got to understand that while there's a lot of fans that are excited about this and there's some good storylines, there's a lot of fans that thought they'd never see this before and having a hard time accepting it too. So, but beyond that, to me, it's just about, I am a fill-in driver for Dale Earnhardt Jr. It's as pure and simple as that, and there's no need to try to do any merchandising on that.
Okay, we'll go right in here in the middle.
Zach Sterniola with the Pocono Record. You had 2 races last year with the lower downforce package, and obviously last week at Indy. How did it feel once you got into the car today? What was it? Any huge difference from what you experienced here in the past?
Well, this is a tough racetrack, so that part's the same. It hasn't changed. The fact that I went in the tunnel turn getting up to speed and almost wrecked told me that the package doesn't have quite as much grip as I was anticipating. Yeah, it's tough, man. I mean, it's really, really tough. This is a big challenge for me. And on one hand, I'm excited about that I'm pushing myself to do this and taking on this challenge, and I'm proud of that. On the other hand, I'm sitting there going, I feel like I'm in the twilight zone. What am I doing? I walked in the debrief at Hendrick Motorsports on Tuesday, grabbed me a plate of food, sat down to do a driver debrief. I did not see that one coming. So it's been pretty strange and weird and awkward and fun, all mixed together. But I'm a race car driver, and I take it serious, and I'm more focused on putting good, solid laps together and getting good speed out of the car. And in my opinion, I didn't do a good enough job of that today so far.
Right here in the center.
Jeff McIntrilla with the Lebanon Daily News. And not only are you handling the pressure of kind of getting back into the car since you haven't been in there in such a long time, but of course Dale's been sliding in the standings and now finds himself on the outside looking in. So how do you kind of deal with all that as you've been going through these last 2 weeks?
Well, that's a big priority for me is some of what I think I mentioned this at the end of last week's race and probably didn't put it in the best words, but on those double file restarts, I was trying to balance out risk versus reward because, let's say it was a 1 or 2 race off thing and I had nothing to lose and just could go wide open, get crazy and do some crazy things on restarts and maybe make up some spots to get in the top 10 or top 5 or whatever. But I'm trying to get them, keep them solidly in the points from an owner standpoint. and that's important to Hendrick Motorsports, important to this team, and so. In that sense, I think it was sort of mission accomplished. We didn't gain a bunch, but we didn't lose a bunch either. And we gained on some and lost a few to some others. And so, that's definitely a big part of the goal this weekend is to come out here with a solid points day. Obviously, it's always the case. You want to get the best finish you can, but, I also can't just go do anything kind of crazy and silly and cause this team to lose a bunch of points either.
Go next to Dan.
Dan Gelston, the Associated Press. Jeff, what did you do with all your retirement gifts? Did you keep all of them? Are you drinking like 18 liters of wine at the blackjack table in your house? Are the ponies?
That's a great idea for a photo shoot. I like that.
Are the ponies parked next to the Bandolero?
Yeah.
I mean, did you keep stuff? Have you gone on any trips from that?
Well, I'm kind of a hoarder when it comes to things like that anyway. So when somebody gives me things, I'm the last to I'm too maybe superstitious to give anything away or do anything with it. So I have a warehouse in North Carolina that all of those things are stored in. And one day, when I look forward to going and revisiting those moments and those things and enjoying them. Nobody's ready for a bandolero in my family, so that hasn't happened. We've enjoyed the ponies. They've surprisingly went over well in the family, but you haven't done any blackjack or haven't drank any whiskey or wine or any of those things. So, well, I mean, I have, just not from the. I've drank plenty, but just not from the collection that I was given as a gift.
Jeff, Jim Coles from the ABC affiliate here in the area. We talked about last week shaking off the rust. 8 months, it's not like riding a bike again. You come out, you talked about the restart issues and everything, but now you're at a track where you've won 6 times. No one has done it better than you or more than you here. What's your comfort level now that you got one under your belt, especially at a track where you've had a lot of success?
Yeah, so for me, I do have confidence at this track. And I've gained confidence from running the race last week, and with the team, I feel comfortable with all of them. But there's still just when you're not in the car week in and week out, going through that process on a regular basis, hard to get into a rhythm, hard to be smooth and be consistent. And so that's what I'm seeing right now. I feel like I've got a pretty good feel for the grip level of the car. So then it comes down to getting the balance right. But because the inconsistency's there, so, trying to understand how deep can I drive into the corner? Do I need to back up the engine? Do I need to arc in a little bit more with this aero package? Few little details that are different in the way the cars drive. Just how the teams advance with the setups and the geometry to maximize this package makes the car drive slightly different than they have in the past. Very similar things, but just slightly different. And so for me, I'm out there trying to gain that confidence and consistency back, and then I'm also trying to evaluate the car to give them feedback on how we can make it go faster. It's not easy, I can tell you that, but it's going fairly well. To me, it's all about doing it when it counts. It's not about what time's on the board. It's not, it's about when we go to qualify, when they drop the green flag for the race. Other than that, everything's a learning experience for me and the team up until race time.
We're going to go to the gentleman in the plaid here on the right, the Al, and then over here to Steve.
Paul Schwedelson from the Philadelphia Inquirer. You mentioned, you got comfortable as the race went along, and then kind of when it set in, when you had to do laundry. Was there a moment specifically that you point to in terms of when it kind of hit you that you're back? It's back to what you were used to all those years.
No, it hasn't hit me yet. Yeah, it's a surreal experience. I don't know how to really describe it. It just it's something that you can't plan for or anticipate. It's even more odd that it went from one race to two races. And then will it be more? I don't know, but I'm just thankful that the team believes in me, and that gives me confidence in myself. And I think Greg said it this way. I'm a bit of a perfectionist. I mean, I'm always striving for that in myself and in the car, and so I beat myself up, and I push myself to want to be the best out there. And if I'm not doing that, then I'm gonna be hard on myself. I mean, I get over it quickly, but so this whole experience is something that is one that I want to enjoy and take a little bit more lightly, but I can't. It's just not in me. It's just not who I am, and so. I wish Dale a speedy recovery because I'd like him to be back in the car. But at the same time, if he's not, I feel like each time I'm in the car, I'll be more confident and comfortable to get better results.
Go next to Al and then to Steve.
Jeff, Al Pearson, Auto Week. The fact that there's an open weekend after the Glen would give Dale an extra week on top of whatever he's taken off. Would that affect his decision at all to not go to the Glen, knowing he'd have another week after that to really get ready for Bristol and Michigan and therefore?
Yeah, that's a question for Dale and a podcast. I don't want to speculate or give any comment on that. I want him back when he's ready, and I think that's what this team wants, and I think that's what Dale wants, and only he and the doctors truly know when that will be, and you'll know next Monday or Tuesday when I know. Maybe slightly.
Guys, we only got time for one more question. We're going to go next to Steve.
Jeff, Al actually alluded to the off weekend, which is off for NASCAR, but it is the Knoxville Nationals. And I know with the Jeff Gordon Foundation, you have a lot going on. You've done it the last few years. What has that week meant to you? The kickball game, the karting event. Just describe getting that week out in Knoxville and what it means to you as a former sprint car racer as well.
Yeah, I love that weekend. I love that race. I think there's a lot, to be learned. Somebody who just loves motorsports and is engaged in the sport from every aspect. It's sort of like the Daytona 500, the Indy 500, and the Knoxville Nationals are the races that I think of that are just they're an event, they're a happening, they're a spectacle, and it draws an amazing ambiance and energy. And not to mention, I just think sprint cars are really, really cool, especially at Knoxville and Eldora. But I look forward to going out there. We're going to have our kickball tournament. We're going to have our go-kart event, which has become very, very popular, to be able to mix it up with Tony and Larson and Casey and, others, any other Cup drivers that want to come out and mix it up with us, that would be fun. We'll love that, and sprint car drivers, or NASCAR drivers in general. So it's a cool event. I love it. I love everything about it, and I like going there. And it to me it still shows that motorsports is still alive and well. And when you have the right event. In the right venue and the right ingredients, you get a standing room only crowd, and you get a lot of interest from sponsors, and you see some of the best talent that exists behind the wheel. And that, to me, those events that I talked about, Knoxville is one of them.
Good deal. Jeff, we really appreciate you
thank
taking
you.
the time coming in today. Thank you.
Appreciate it.